Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Exodus, the 24th chapter. So as the Lord is still speaking to Moses, he then commands Moses, as we see here in Exodus 24:1, and says, "And he said unto Moses, Come up unto the Lord Yahweh, thou and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, which are Aaron's sons, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and worship ye afar off." So this Moses was already there with the Lord as he was speaking to him, but he was instructing him, saying, basically, when you go back down the next time, this is what I want you to do. All right, you're going to come up with Aaron and his sons and 70 of the elders. And Moses alone shall come near unto the Lord, but they shall not come near, or shall not come nigh. Neither shall the people go up with him. So when you come, first off, the Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, and the 70 elders, they would come, closer, but there would be a certain point where they had to basically stay. And then Moses would draw all the way close to where the Lord would call him to. But the rest of the congregation, the people, they had to stay back. They couldn't come close to that mount. So there was an area where Israel camped. Okay, and then there was the mountain or Horeb, where the Lord would call Moses to go up to it to talk to him. And Moses came and told the people all the words of the Lord Yahweh and all the judgments. So from about 2 or 3 chapters ago, when the Lord called Moses up to him, and he said, was it Exodus 21? These are the judgments which thou shalt set before them. He was basically saying, look, this is the regulations or the stipulations of this contract or this covenant, all right, that you were going to set before the children of Israel. So when you go back down, as Moses did, he came and told the people all the words of the Lord to say, these are the requirements of Yahweh and all the judgments. And this is what you have to do. And this is what you can't do. And so on and so forth. And all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which the Lord Yahweh hath said we will do. So they agreed to this covenant. And Moses wrote all the words of the Lord Yahweh and rose up early in the morning. So he wrote this down. So this is like in a book form, and this would be like the contract, you could say. And rose up in the morning and builded an altar under the hill, meaning at the bottom of the mountain, and 12 pillars of the altar, according to the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent young men of the children of Israel, because at this point the Lord hadn't established the Levitical priesthood yet. So Moses sends 12 young men of the children of Israel, which offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen unto the Lord. And a peace offering is like a voluntary offering. But anyway, they performed these sacrifices unto the Lord. This is a part of the ritual for forming the covenant. And Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. And he took the book of the covenant. Remember, he wrote down all the words in there. So basically, that was the contract, and read it in the audience of the people. And they said, all that the Lord Yahweh hath said, we will do and be obedient. So that's kind of like today, they tell you sign here. And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, behold, the blood of the covenant, which the Lord Yahweh hath made with you concerning all these words. So that was the forming of the covenant between Israel and the Lord, to say, he is our God, we are his people, this is the contract, this is what we got to follow, this is what we got to do. And it was sealed in blood. Then went up Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, as the Lord commanded him. And they saw the God of Israel, and there was under his feet as it were a paved work of sapphire stone, and as it were the body of heaven in his clearness. Now, the God of Israel, this doesn't mean that they saw the Most High himself, right, in human or man form. And it doesn't tell you directly, but visualizing this, you know, there's a good chance that this would have been a chariot that they saw, and likely the bottom of it. Okay, so now I could be wrong, but this is just, for example, how I would visualize this, which is the chariot, the Lord's chariot, hovering right above that mountain. And so when it says, and there was under his feet, as it were, a paved work of sapphire stone. When you read this in another translation here, let's see, it says, let's look at the NLT. It says, under his feet, there seemed to be a surface of brilliant blue lapis lazuli, which I guess would be like a stone. Let's look that up here. Yeah, this right here. So this is the color. And then it says, as clear as the sky itself. So would the top of the mountain have turned this color that looked as clear as this in this with this design, or what the soles of God's foot have looked like this? You know, because if you look, you know, if you visualize it as a chariot, it would, you know, make sense in the fact that looking up, looking at the bottom of the, you know, the material or the design or whatever of it, it looked like that. That's why it says that it was under his feet. That's what it looked like to them. Okay, that it looked as clear as the heavens. It says here, and upon the nobles of the children of Israel, he laid not his hand, meaning the Most High didn't destroy them or strike them, even though they were close to his presence there, because he's the one who commanded them to come up there. So, and the nobles is dealing with the elders that came up there with Moses. Also, they saw God and did eat and drink. And the word God there in the Hebrew is Elohim, right? So they saw the power or the glory of the Lord, and they did eat and drink. Because remember, they had made that covenant. So they killed the actual animals and sacrificed it, but then they would eat of that covenantal meal to solidify it. And the Lord Yahweh said unto Moses, come up to me into the mount, and be there, and I will give thee tables of stone, and a law and commandments which I have written. Now, usually when you see this, right, the 10 commandments, this is what usually you'll see, right? Two stone tablets here. The Lord did not say two. He didn't specify an amount. He said tablets. And those tablets contain more than just 10 commandments, right? So it says here, and a law and commandments which I have written, that thou mayest teach them. And Moses rose up, and his minister or his assistant Joshua, and Moses went up into the mount of God. So he basically went up further, right, and climbed, because it's a mountain, right, to where the Lord was. And he said unto the elders, tarry ye here for us until we come again unto you. So wait here, because he was going there with Joshua, and likely, you know, they would have gone further, but then likely Moses alone would have gone, you know, exactly to where the Lord was. But anyway, it says, you wait here until we come back, and behold, Aaron and Hur are with you. If any man have any matters to do, let him come on to them. So if there's anybody that needs, you know, a problem handled or whatever, you got them. They can handle it. And Moses went up into the mount, and a cloud covered the mount. And the glory of the Lord Yahweh abode upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. And the 7th day he called unto Moses out of the midst of the cloud. And this resembles the situation where the same kind of a scene, but when the Lord transfigured himself and the voice came out of the cloud and spake to the disciples, those that were the few that were with him, and said, this is my son in whom I am well pleased. Now, based on that description, right, once again, we know that as the scriptures say, I think it's in the book of Psalms, is that maketh the clouds his chariot. Psalms 104:3, who layeth the beams of his chambers in the waters, who maketh the clouds his chariot, who walketh upon the wings of the wind. So in most times, when it mentions cloud and you start to see some unnatural characteristics about the cloud, it's often talking about a chariot. And by a chariot, I'm referring to what the world knows today as so-called UFOs. Okay, because they would often cloak themselves within clouds. All right. And in the ancient world, they didn't have anything else that would look in that shape and be in the sky like that other than clouds. Right. They can't say it's a bird. I mean, if it's very, very far, it might look like one. But if it's closer up with the size of it, the next best thing they could compare it to is a cloud, because they can't say it's a plane or a helicopter or a drone. Those things didn't exist back then. So going back here to Exodus 24:16, it says, and the glory of the Lord Yahweh abode upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. So this would have been a chariot, a big one that overshadowed the mountain. And the 7th day he called unto Moses out of the midst of the cloud. So was the Lord sitting in the midst of a white puffy smoke? No. But this is like a chariot, and kind of like how, because chariots are vehicles, right? So kind of like how you have today, if you have like a police car, right, that pulls up behind somebody, and sometimes they might actually speak into what they have as it's like a mic inside of their car, and then it sounds through the speakers of their car, so you can hear them outside the car, very loudly, right? But that's a form of technology that allows you to do that. And I wanted to pull this precept here in the book of Matthew 17, dealing with the transfiguration. And I'm just going to get to the point here. I'll read maybe the first 2 verses and jump down. It says here, and after 6 days, Matthew 17:1, Yahushua taketh Peter, James, and John, his brother, and bringeth them up to an high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as light. And then jumping down, they basically offered here, oh, let's build tabernacles, because they ended up seeing now Moses, Elias, right, because the Lord had transfigured himself. And this is the response. This is what ended up happening, right? Verse 5, while he yet spake, while Peter was speaking, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them. And behold, a voice out of the cloud. Once again, a voice out of the cloud, kind of like what happened here with Moses, because it said a voice, the Lord called him out of the midst of the cloud, right? So it says here, a voice out of the cloud, which said, this is my beloved son, in whom I am well pleased, hear ye him. Now, clouds don't have speakers, right? So clouds don't talk. So we know that this bright cloud had to have been not just an ordinary cloud, but a chariot. Once again, probably cloaked inside of a cloud, because one, it's described here as a bright cloud. And when you go into that word bright, in the Greek here, it says composed of light, full of light, well lit. Clouds by nature themselves are not, they don't have light in them per se. If you look at a cloud at night, something like this, it's not shining. The only time you would see like a cloud that looks bright is something like this. If either there is a light behind it that is shining forth through it, okay, or there's a light within the cloud that is shining forth out of it. But a cloud by itself is not going to be shining bright. It wouldn't be considered a bright cloud, okay? So when you see something like this, right, in the nighttime, unless there's actually some light source within it, that's what's going to cause the cloud to be full of light. So when you go back to Matthew 17, that's another, indicator here that this wasn't just an ordinary cloud, okay, but this was a chariot cloaked within a cloud, similar to what we're reading of here in Exodus 24 about the glory of the Lord. and how or why it says here that he called, out of the midst of the cloud and spoke unto Moses. It says here, so Moses is called now. It says, and the sight of the glory of the Lord was like devouring fire on the top of the mount in the eyes of the children of Israel. Okay. And that lines up with what was described as that chariot that was leading them, because it said that that chariot was a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Now, there is no cloud that transforms. I just literally showed an image of what clouds look like at night. They don't turn into fire, like a fire light that's in the nighttime. And how is it then that when we read before that this cloud was able to give light on one side to the children of Israel when the Egyptians were encamped after them, and then on one side be dark? Normal clouds don't actually behave that way. Okay, this was a chariot and it's described as such. That's why with the lights, it can look like fire. If you see a chariot flying right in the nighttime in the sky, it looks like a ball of light, okay, or a fireball that's traveling in the sky. So as it says here, reading verse 17 again, and the sight of the glory of the Lord was like devouring fire on the top of the mount in the eyes of the children of Israel. And Moses went into the midst of the cloud and gat him up into the mount. So at this point, it doesn't say it, but more than likely, Joshua had to have stopped at a certain point, and then Moses alone went further in. And Moses was in the mount 40 days and 40 nights. Because remember, he had to go up there and receive of the tablets, right, to teach basically what he would teach the children of Israel, in addition to all the other things that he had to do, designing the tabernacle and the Ark of the Covenant, X, Y, and Z. So all those things were showed onto Moses while he was up in that mount. And that brings us to the end of the book of Exodus, the 24th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rechak, Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.